Okay, before hitting the sine or cosine or tangent button on that calculator, you always, always, always have to hit the mode button and see if you're in the right mode for the problem. You know, a square root button just does square root stuff. 8, you just, oops, that's wrong. That's not how you do that on this. You hit square root and then you hit 8, and there's no mode that you need. The square root is just the square root. However, the sine of 3 degrees is very different from the sine of 3 radians, right? Think about where 1 degree is. It's right there. And think about 1 radian is. It's right there. So the sine is going to be very different for radians and degrees. Like, for example, let's see what mode we're in. I hit the mode button and you can see it's down here. I'm in radian measure. Okay, so I'm going to hit the sine of 1. What that means is the sine of 1 radian. Well, it's 3.14 radians to get all the way over here. So 1 radian we decided was somewhere around 57 degrees, I think, something like that, right? So the sine of 1 radian is the y value up there. It's 0.84. Now let me change to degrees, mode, degree, and let me do the exact same problem. The sine of 1 degree is just barely anything because 1 degree only barely gets up off of the x-axis. 1 radian way up to 57 degrees. It's a y value thing, so it's going to be much bigger for that radian measure. So my point is, when we go to do stuff like this and put it in the calculator, don't touch one of these buttons until you make sure you're in the right mode for degrees or radian mode. Okay, let's notice something about this SOHCAHTOA situation. Secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. If you flip those, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. Don't we already know that one? That's cosine. So cosecant, if you flip it opposite over hypotenuse, don't we already know that one? It's sine. And if you flip this opposite over adjacent, isn't that tangent? So please notice that secant is the same thing as 1 over the cosine of theta. Cosecant is 1 over the sine of theta. And cotangent is 1 over the tangent of theta. Okay, I'd like to point something else out. Let's go up here. If the sine of theta is actually opposite over hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is the biggest side in the triangle, this can never be bigger than 1. You guys agree with that? So it's got to be the case that negative 1 is less than or equal to the sine of theta, which is less than or equal to 1. Sine of theta values are trapped between negative 1 and 1. I mean, I could make it more obvious than that. Let me bring in this picture right here. The biggest sine value we get for a y value is up here, isn't it? It's 1. And the lowest y value we get is down here. It's negative 1. While I'm at it, cosine of theta is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Well, if that's the biggest side in the triangle, this can't be bigger than 1 either. So for the same reason, negative 1 is less than or equal to the cosine of theta, which is less than or equal to 1. Tangent doesn't have that problem. It's opposite over adjacent. And so there's no guarantee which one of those is going to be bigger. So it can be bigger than 1 and smaller than negative 1. Okay, let's go with the calculator. The example, I'm going to say estimate. We're not giving the exact answers here because you actually have to round. So it's as easy as you remember. You've done this before for sure. Sine of 72, hit the mode button, make sure you're in degree mode. I am in degree mode. Okay, then I can just rock through these. The sine of 72, close your parentheses if you'd like to. Now it's in 3 decimal places, so it's going to be 0.951. Easy. The cosine, this is still degrees, so I could just roll with this, negative 132. Well, think about where that is. Negative 132. Oh, look, I said before you I'm so dumb. Before you do, though, tell that the answer will be positive or negative. All right, I gave you one there. Cosine of negative 132. Where is negative 132? There's negative 90, and there's negative 180. So negative 132 is around here somewhere. Doesn't the cosine have to be negative? Anything between negative 90 and negative 180, the cosine will definitely be negative. So cosine of negative 132 is definitely negative 0.669. Okay, the tangent of 193. Well, before I hit enter, let's talk about whether that should be positive or negative. The tangent of 193. There's 90. There's 180. That's 270. 193 is going to be somewhere around here, isn't it? So all of those points are negative negatives, and tangent is the y over the x. So that's going to be negative over negative. My answer is definitely going to be positive. Tangent of 193 is positive 0.231. If I round to 3 decimal places, I got to turn that 0 into a 1. Okay, sine of 12 pi over 7. Well, that's in radian mode, so I got to go to mode, change to radians, and then we go. 12 pi over 7. I'll put this in, sine. Look how it goes. 12. There is a pi button right there. Pi divided by 7. Now I'm not going to hit enter yet, but I got to take a guess at what sign this is. 12 pi over 7. Where would that even be? Well, if this is pi, wouldn't that be the same thing as 7 pi over 7 right there? Right? 7 pi over 7, that's pi. And if I keep going, wouldn't this be 14 pi over 7? Okay. So 12 pi over 7 is somewhere between here and here. If you think of it, what's half of 7? 3.5. So this would be 3.5 pi over 12. That means that every 90 degrees is another 3.5. So it's weird to put a decimal in a fraction, but wouldn't this be 10.5 pi over 12 right here? Okay, now the one we're asking about is 12 pi. Oops, this is over 7. Dang it. Why did I put 12s there? So dumb. Okay, so we're looking for 12 pi over 7. That's got to be in the 4th quadrant. If it's in the 4th quadrant and I'm working with sine, that's a y value. It's going to be negative. Sine of 12 pi over 7 is negative. It's negative 0.782 if I'm rounding. Okay, the cosine of 5 pi divided by 8. I'm not going to hit enter yet. We've got to take a guess at positive or negative. 5 pi over 8. Well, that'd be 8 pi over 8, wouldn't it? That's 0 pi over 8. 8 pi over 8. Half of 8 pi over 8 is 4 pi over 8. If I'm looking for 5 pi over 8, this is 4 pi over 8. This is 8 pi over 8. It's somewhere right here. And if it's a cosine thing, that's an x value. And aren't all the x's in quadrants 2 and 3 negative? This one's going to be negative. Negative 0.384. Negative 0.384. Okay, tangent of 11 pi over 10. Tangent of 11 pi divided by 10. Just type it in, just look at it looks. Let's think about positives or negatives. 11 pi over 10. Well, that's going to be 10 pi over 10, and that would be 20 pi over 10. And half of 10 pi over 10 is 5 pi over 10. So I have 0, 5 pi over 10, 10 pi over 10, 15 pi over 10. 10 pi over 10, 15 pi over 10, and I'm looking for 11, so it's going to be right around here. I'm in the 3rd quadrant. It's negative, negative. Now I'm doing tangent, so that's going to be y over x. A negative over a negative is definitely going to be a positive. Tangent of 11 pi over 10 is positive 0.325 if I'm rounding to 3 decimal places. Okay, this gets a little weirder. We can stop guessing the pluses and minuses. They're just going to go the same as sines and cosines. If you flip a fraction, it doesn't flip the sign. So if this was 72 and I was looking for the cosecant of 72, it's still going to be positive. Okay, secant of 122. Secant, we've decided, is 1 over cosine. So if I want to know the secant of 122, I got to change the mode to degree. And then I'm just going to type in 1 divided by the cosine of 122. That's how you do it. Secant is 1 divided by the cosine of 122. If you want it, I maybe write it down. That's how you put that in the calculator. It's negative 1.887. Now, cosine's not allowed to be bigger than 1, but because it's a reciprocal, if you put a fraction down there like we did earlier today, where did we put a fraction in the denominator? We put a fraction right here in the denominator, and when you flip it, you get 2 over the square root of 3. Since it flips, the fraction could be bigger than 1. Cosecant of negative 86 is 1 over the sine of negative 86. So go to put that in the calculator. 1, oops, that's a 7. 1 divided by the sine of negative 86. 1.002, negative 1.002. The cotangent of 139, cotangent is 1 over tangent. So 1 divided by the tangent of 139 is negative 1.150. Remember, tangent and cotangent are opposites and adjacents, so they can be over 1. That's not surprising at all. 3 more. Okay, this is 1 over the sine of 15 pi over 12. That's how it's going to go in the calculator. Now, I'm still in degree mode, so I got to switch. Radian mode, because I'm putting radians in. 1 divided by the sine, and I start parentheses, I just type it in just like this, 15 pi divided by 12, and finish the parentheses. The calculator knows what to do. It sees this division sign, and once this goes into argument, it all stays in the denominator. That answer is negative 1.414. The secant of negative 3 pi over 13 is going to be 1 over the cosine of negative 3 pi over 13. And so this is how it goes in the calculator. 1 divided by, I don't really need parentheses because there's only one thing I'm putting in there. I'm putting a cosine thing in the denominator. The rest of this is in the argument of that function, so the calculator's not going to get confused as long as I close those parentheses. Even if I don't, I'll be okay. I get 1.336. Okay, and then the cotangent of 19 pi over 10, that's 1 over the tangent. So 1 divided by the tangent of 19 pi divided by 10. And I get negative 3.07. That would be 8, wouldn't it? 078. All right, there you go. Let's go to the next video.